Welcome to another episode of Crushing Comics, the show where I fall in love with my comic book collection all over again. Let's see, what are we going to do? One of these rare brown paper variants from the very beginning of the packing process. It's not going to take long to open, so I don't know if I need a whole introductory topic. Have you moved a lot in your life? I don't think I really had, because I lived in the same house. We wound up with a topic anyway. I lived in the same house until I was 16, briefly lived somewhere else, and most of my moves were throughout college, when I think a lot of people wind up moving almost every year. And then even after college, I've only lived 3 places. This is the 4th place I've lived after college. So that's not all that many moves, which is I think why this whole moving process was like so shocking to me, because I haven't had to keep my stuff so mobile, and also because I had like long periods of time to sit down and just like accumulate stuff without worrying about like not only how am I going to move this, but how's it going to fit somewhere else. Like I tend to be very much like a goldfish or like a snail or a crab that fits into a shell, where I just like accumulate enough stuff to fill the space that I've got. Actually, it's funny, at work I was always I would ask for a smaller desk sometimes, actually multiple times through my working life I would ask for a smaller desk. And people will be like, why would you want a smaller desk? And I said, you know what? Because if I have a bigger desk, I'm just going to expand to fill up the desk with as much stuff as I can. I'd rather have a smaller desk and be more efficient. Unfortunately, ship has sailed on that concept for houses, because now I've got all this stuff and I can never fit into a small house again. This early wrapping process was intense, man. You know, you see all these things about like tiny house living now, and you know, it's cool for some people, and we got a taste of that. I wouldn't say it was a tiny house, but we got a taste of that when we first moved to Wellington. We stayed in an Airbnb that was quite small, and it was a lot of fun. I liked it, but we had only a few suitcases of things to our name, and I couldn't live like that long term. I'm somebody who's materialistic. I love my stuff, not just these books, but you know, like guitars and cookware and clothes, and I look at these people who are living in these like tiny houses. On the way to Wellington, we stayed with our friend in San Francisco who lives in a studio apartment. Gorgeous view, gorgeous apartment, but it's smaller, I think, than this room, and I don't know if I could make it. So that's a little tour of my cluttered psyche and also my cluttered house. This is The Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, Volume 2, and it is the classic cover. I don't always go with classic covers. Actually, sometimes I feel like it's sort of a waste, because like you already know what that issue looked like classically, and why not go with a different illustration? But these classic covers were just so gorgeous that I decided for the whole Shang-Chi related 6 omnibus set that I wanted the classic versions, and so then I had to like chase them down as soon as they came out, because they can get pretty scarce sometimes. Deadly Hands of Kung Fu is an interesting kind of title. So this was not strictly a comic book. It's kind of a weird thing to say. It was actually a magazine that Marvel launched at the same time that they launched the comic book Master of Kung Fu. And it was all to take advantage of the Bruce Lee Kung Fu and other things other than Bruce Lee Kung Fu phase of the mid-70s. Marvel at that time had a very successful and profitable magazines division, and it made a lot of sense to have a magazine that would have editorial content surrounding Kung Fu at the same time that they had a comic book ongoing about Kung Fu. And the thing is that they did still wanted some crossover appeal, and so they ran comic stories in this magazine, but it was a black and white magazine. So all of these magazines had, like, let's see, so letters, editorial, a story by Chris Claremont, and then also Birth of the Dragon, an article, a book review, and a commentary about fighting women, the myth and the reality. So this was truly a magazine, but then in these magazines, there's this just, like, really, really remarkable black and white comic stories, which were generally in continuity and featured Marvel characters like Shang-Chi, Iron Fist. In fact, I want to say that this magazine may have been the first appearance of the... Oh, this has got some stuff I've got to cover with my hand because there's a lot of nudity, but the first appearance of the Daughters of the Dragon, Misty Knight and Colleen Wing, who now we know from Netflix. There they are, right there. But also that Marvel could get away with things like nudity in a comic book because it was a magazine and not a comic book that was necessarily meant for children. So it's kind of crazy to think about now. Like, when they first announced these series, nobody thought that we were going to get the magazines. Like, Why? Why would they do that? Everybody read the announcement as if it was going to be a 4 omnibus series that was going to include all of Master of Kung Fu and somehow just integrate the stories from Deadly Hands of Kung Fu. And everybody, me included, was doing the math of how it was going to integrate those stories. And then lo and behold, we got there and they started to announce these 2 omnibuses with the magazine content. Now, personally, am I ever read all of this Kung Fu magazine content? Absolutely not. I've never. I have way too many books on this wall. I think if you were somebody who's like a major Bruce Lee enthusiast, then maybe it would be a buy for you. And I don't know if there are people that are huge Bruce Lee enthusiasts around anymore. I'm not sure if that's a thing. But, you know, I absolutely bought it for the article, or not the articles, the comic book stories. And if they announced some slimmer, oversized hardcover that just had the comic book stories, I'm sure a slew of people would sell these off and just switch to that. But it was the only way to get them, and so we went in for it. And we paid a premium for it, too, because these were $125 omnibuses. The price tag usually referred to as the X-Men tax, because usually it's X-Men books that get the $125 price tags and not other Marvel books. But here it is on my shelf nonetheless. I don't know what the heck I'm going to talk about when we unwrap Volume 1, because that was a lot of information about this book. So let us ceremonially shelve The Deadly Hands of Kung Fu, Volume 2. Tune in next time for more unwrapping and reshelving of the comic books that are part of why I cannot live in a small house here on Crushing Comics. Thanks for watching.